Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Capricorn, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of June 2025. I hope you are well. I'm using the Llewellyn Tarot for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is linked down in the description box below. It will take you to Self-Eye, or alternatively, you can come over and join. You can join us in Circle, where you can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost beyond the membership fee. There's weekly energy readings that happen over there. They've been happening all year, in addition to the extendeds for all of the signs, and there are live classes that you can participate in. So if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, let's get that there. You know what to do with those links. So let's flip this around and say, can we have 3 cards for Capricorn, please? Well, there's the first one. Right, we have the Magician. I have to report, it has landed on its side. That's not awful, don't worry. Quite like that, actually. What about current energy for Capricorn, please? We have the Tower, another one, Capricorn, and what's coming towards Capricorn for June? Right, Page of Cups in reverse. Okay, well, there isn't really any way of getting around the fact that this looks kind of challenging, Capricorn. We've got the Five of Swords sitting at the bottom of the deck there. There is... There's a feeling that there's a simultaneous mindset and emotional uplift going on, but uplift makes it sound like uplifting, and I'm not sure that it is uplifting. It feels much more kind of like breaking apart a little bit so that you can renew and build again, in both mind and emotion. Because principally we're looking at the intersection of the two, and where these two have experienced some growth, which it looks like is happening here for you, and I think actually on and off it's been happening since December, Capricorn. There's got to be a point where they meet again and we see how your complete worldview has changed, right? You know, it could be as clear as like your perception of reality is completely fucking different, but this seems to be happening again and again and again for you, Capricorn. I was seeing lots of astrologers saying, "Oh, you'll be all, you know, breathing a sigh of relief now that Pluto's out of your sign, Capricorn." And I have to say, as a Capricorn ascendant, that really has not been my experience at all. It's probably not been quite as excoriating as it was at points while Pluto was in Capricorn, but it seems like there's almost like an accelerated timeline of expansion and contraction going on here that, quite frankly, is pretty fucking uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. It's like, there you go, you had 15 years to learn all the things that you needed to learn, and now you have to put them into practice. And this feels like it's another one of those months. So let's get some clarifiers on the table. We'll put some meat on the bones of this, and then we'll see what it's all about. Tell me about the Magician, please. Why is this here for Capricorn? Thank you. Oh, we've got 3 cards. We have the Three of Cups, the Hermit, and the Two of Pentacles. Tell me about the Tower, please. High Priestess reversed. Interesting. That's very, very interesting, because that's a combination, not the reversal, but the combination of the 2 cards that we see with big awakenings. I wonder if the fact that the High Priestess is coming out reversed is the source of the Tower more than anything else, you know. And we have the Ace of Pentacles. Yeah, again, expansion. Contraction first, ready for the expansion. Tell me about the Page of Cups. Wir haben the Two of Swords and the Tower. This feels... yeah, uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie, Capricorn. Let's put the World down there. That's the shadow card at the bottom of this deck here. So what we do have, and what's very clearly indicated, is a rapid acceleration towards the end of a cycle. Now, it has felt at points over the last few months like that we've been doing that, right? We've hit the end of a cycle, right? Fuck, everything's changed, right? It's all different now. But this feels bigger than that. I like the fact that we do have the Ace of Pentacles here, but I'll get into that in a moment. What I want to focus on is the fact that Saturn, which is the astrological correspondence of this card, is showing up right at the point where we have your ruling planet moving into the sign of Aries, right? So it's been in the last sign of the zodiac, the Pisces, for the last 2.5 years or so, or 3 years if you take in its, ingress and retrograde. But it's about to go. It's about to start a whole new cycle here, Capricorn. Now, Aries is cardinal fire. You are cardinal earth. That means that whatever is going on in Aries, at least by house, is squaring you, right? So we always have some tension, a bit of a grind where that's concerned. Where, the two edges kind of rubbing together, being all like, well, I want to go this way, and it's going, oh, well, you're being dragged this way. And it doesn't surprise me that we would see this showing up here, where this accelerated tension, which is pushing you towards something new, is showing up. And I mean, double tower in one reading, 5 of swords at the bottom of the deck, high priestess reversed. This seems more like resistance to me than the universe taking the opportunity to kick the shit out of you. It's more like there are things trying to come in as there are things that are trying to end. And it is entirely possible that we've mixed up what's supposed to be ending and what's supposed to be starting. Like a resistance to the starting and a resistance to the ending means we end up just kind of spinning in space like a cat that's, been buttered. It's that whole thing, right? Cats always land on their feet and toast always lands butter side down. So what happens if you butter a cat? It's just going to spin on the spot, right? I feel like a lot of this month is going to feel like spinning for you, Capricorn. Simply to the point where you work out where the energy is supposed to be going. Now, like I said, there's a combination of heart and head that are being worked on here. We see the Page of Cups is in the reverse, the High Priestess is in reverse. So the heart stuff, the emotional stuff, it's not quite as open as it should be. But we also see the mind with the 5 of Swords and the 2 of Swords, even the Magician on its side, which is a mercurial card. So a lot to do with intelligence and thinking and rationality and facts of stuff, They're all getting an outing too. And it makes me feel like there's been too much thinking and not enough feeling going on here, Capricorn. But I mean, we'll get into it in a second. The whole point of this month is not to subject you to abject torture. The point of this month is to accelerate the timeline that you are on. Accelerate your way through the challenges and the struggles so that you yourself can draw to a state of completion, whatever cycle that you've been in, ready for this whole new energy that's approaching. Now, Saturn will actually retrograde back into the sign of Pisces. And this is kind of a Pisces card for me. It doesn't actually have a strict astrological correspondence, but it feels very Piscean to me. It'll be dipping back September, October time, something like that, while it goes into retrograde, while it's in retrograde. Then when it comes back into the sign of Aries, it's going to be there, full stop, for the next 2.5 years. So there's a sneak peek, really, of what the rest of the transit is going to look like for you, that we can see from this ingress, brief as it is. It's only a few months, And because the point is to change you, to change your perspective, to change your, quite frankly, where the priorities are in your life. And it seems to be happening at quite an accelerated rate. What we can establish from that is it's hard and fast, A lot of everything that's going to be happening here is going to be hard and fast, but over much more swiftly than it might be otherwise. And we've seen how the energies of the moment have really picked up a pace. I did say at the beginning of the year that I felt like the world would move forwards at somewhat of a breakneck pace, and we're witnessing everything changing. And we're like, well, what the fuck? What does this all mean, right? And then we need to change dramatically in order to keep up with where the world is right now. Like that. This is how I'm reading all of this here to be. So it's not that you're being singled out for cruel and unusual punishment. More, it is that you're getting very, very close to a breakthrough, Capricorn, and the universe is booting you through it, because you don't get to take your time over this one, is effectively what I'm reading it as. So we've got the Magician on its side here, and this is very, very interesting, because whilst this is a card of manifestation when it's this way up, and this is a card of not manifestation, well, blocked manifestation potentially, it could also be a card of well, deception. Actually, let's just put it out there, right? Because the Magician is inherently manipulative, right? So we look at that generally in a good way. Yes, he can manipulate reality, he can make it into anything that he wants, he can manifest whatever he wants. But the pejorative version of that is manipulation, right? Manipulating other people, abuses of power, that sort of thing. Now, we don't have either of those being the case. What we have here is the Magician sitting on his side, somewhat incapacitated, but not yet out of the game. And I think the reason why he's incapacitated here for you, Capricorn, is because, in all honesty, you're not entirely sure what it is that you want to manifest at this point, right? If you had a clear idea, if you had a map in front of you that said, that led to a destination which was somewhere in alignment with how you find yourself right now, you'd be like, I'm on it. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to employ all of my Capricorn resources in that direction. But you don't have that map, you don't have any idea how to get there. And I think truly at this point, because you are in a state of change, and you are, Capricorn, there's no getting away from this, like who you are right now as you're watching this video is probably not who you are going to be in 2-3 weeks hence, right? Something's going to be different. Equally, who you are right now is not who you were 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, right? Things are changing, and they're changing almost daily for you at this point. And there's always going to be a period of adjustment, right? We need a period of adjustment, but there's also going to be a point where all of these things need to be integrated. We're talking about, a grand discovery of self, actually. But what's difficult about it is the extent to which you need to unpick all of your conditioning in order to discover what it is that you truly, Capricorn, want for yourself, rather than all the ways that you have trained yourself to deliver what society, family, teachers, bosses have said was the point of view, right? And that is something that takes years. I guess as I started this process in 2017, and I am still fucking balls deep in it, like completely. It's peeling away the layers, and every time you think you've done it all, you get hit with something else, and you're like, holy shit, right? This conditioning runs really, really deep. For whatever reason, like I said, you seem to be on an accelerated timeline with this one. Like, you don't get to spend 8 years. My dog just hacking up in the garden. You don't get to spend 8 years pondering this one. It's like, it's happening now, whether you like it or not, hard and fast, and you're going to have to deal with it. So to some extent, I don't think that you should be concerned about the fact that you don't actually know what you want right now, because you're not who you will be, you're not who you were, and any decisions that are made in the moment right now, in all likelihood, would need to be, again, unpicked later on down the line, and we're not about that life, right? That's not particularly fucking efficient, and we like to be efficient. So I think the upshot of this is that it's seen you simultaneously withdraw from people, because the hermit is always in a state of withdrawal, right? But I'm also seeing this hermit kind of approaching people. It feels like a re-establishment of perhaps, what has been in the past close connections, right? So close connections to family or close connections to friends. Like, what I feel is a kind of tentative desire to open up to people that you trust. And I think in the first instance, just the awareness that there is trust there is one of the things that's left you reeling a little bit, right? It's not that you didn't trust these people, it's just that you hadn't really thought about it like that before. But you realise in a world that is, feeling a little bit like a void at the moment, because there's so much going on, but also like, what the fuck? It's just a big bubbling cauldron of chaos. That somewhere deep down there is trust for certain people, and there is a feeling of a need to approach other people and try and open up, try and be vulnerable with them, try and share these things with them. But again, at the same time, kind of perhaps physically withdrawing, right, from people, being like, ah. Oh, Capricorns generally have a fairly close, small, close circle. You're a bit like Scorpio, like that. You know, you're not available for everyone, and that's fine, right? That's always been fine, because the cost benefit analysis of being a Capricorn is there are only so many spoons that I've got, and there are several different directions that these spoons are already committed to. Like, I don't have the extra spoons to have a 300 person strong social group, and neither should you. I think it's not good for humans. Anyway, so there's this kind of push-pull. And maybe for some of you, it's realizing that there aren't any of those people that you have that level of trust with, right? It's kind of like you've withdrawn, reassessed, gone, what do I, who do I know? Who am I about? Who are these people around who might be able to help me at this moment where I'm kind of struggling a little bit? And for some of you, the answer might be there really isn't anyone, which is a whole rabbit hole on its own, because the question would be why then? Why are they not there? Now, in different times, we could come up with a fairly solid reason, which might have been something like, oh, you didn't make time for them, or you weren't, open and vulnerable enough. And as sometimes these things happen, friendships just drift apart. But we're not in ordinary times. We're in very different times. So it could well be that actually what has happened is everybody is spinning in their own fucking hamster ball right now, having no fucking idea what is going on at all, and all dealing with it in the best way that they possibly can, which for most people is withdrawal, right? 100%. So push-pull around the idea of people, the idea of trust, the idea of emotional support. But this does mean here, and with this Capricorn card down here, that you're kind of trying to keep it all together without knowing what it is that you're trying to keep together, and what does it mean, and why is it important. And almost like the more effort that you expend on the things that traditionally would have given you a sense of fulfillment and completion and maybe even pride in what it is that you're doing, seem to be taking you further away from what is important, right? It's creating this gulf. And I don't think you like it, Capricorn. I don't think you like it at all. The problem is that what does it mean, right? And this is where the Five of Swords comes in, because, one of the biggest issues with the Five of Swords is that it's chaotic. It's chaotic and disjointed, and it's incredibly unstable, right? Now, that's 5 as a number, full stop, right? But if we're taking in swords at this point, we're talking about the workings of your mind. We're talking about the way that you think. We're talking about the way that you speak, the way that you hear things coming back from other people. We're talking about thought processes. We're talking about your perceptions of reality, how they seem to be breaking down and not being replaced with anything that makes sense, right? We need to feel comfortable, even in moments of great discomfort. We need to feel like what we're doing is switching out something that wasn't working for something that is working, right? Or will work, at least, holds the potential of working. So think about when you change jobs, right? And you move into a role that's slightly different, that's a little bit more senior than what you have been doing, right? And there's a feeling like you've been dropped in the deep end for the first week or so, and then you get your feet and then you're off, you're flying, right? But in that moment of transition betwixt the old job that you've outgrown, in whatever sense that that applies, whether it's just not paying you enough, it's not commensurate with your skill level, blah blah, and you get to a point where you feel like you're owning what you're doing and you are competent at what you're doing in the new place. We've got that. The reason that we do it is because there's faith in self that at some point where we're going will justify it, because there's more opportunity, or there's a higher pay packet that comes with it, or you get a little bit more time at home for pursuing your own interests or spending with family, right? We're switching out one thing that is certain for something else that is less certain but holds the capacity, the potential for massive improvement, right? And so in that moment, what we do is accept the uncertainty, we accept the instability, and we power through on skill, trust, hard work, all that kind of thing. Trust in self, specifically when it comes to this, right? Now, in the situation that you find yourself in right now, I don't feel like you've necessarily voluntarily switched things out. I think things have just been falling off a cliff or breaking down, or, you know, the tower, which seems to have been showing up for you quite a lot since December, has seemed to whip through in different bits of your life and kick things over just while you were focusing on something else, and you're like, oh, I've got to go and sort this out now. I was just doing that. Fuck, right? It's almost been like constant firefighting. But there's been something really profound happening to the way that you think, that, and particularly in terms of the things that you value, right? So your pursuit of value looks very, very different now, even though it's still in a process of changing, than it did last year. Like, the things that you are willing to put the energy into pursuing feel different. But it hasn't settled down. And so this sense of switching out a known for an unknown, but an unknown that's following a relatively predictable path, is absent from what you're experiencing right now. And that is fucking terrifying. Like, it's literally fucking terrifying. Because, yeah, like Four of Cups underneath here, it's almost like you're unsure of what you stand for. You're unsure of what you're about. You're maybe even unsure of what you value. But on some level, you seem to be questioning the value of yourself here too. You know, you're having to rewrite the script on what successful looks like, and it doesn't bear any resemblance at all to the things that, you know, the very predictable script that you were following before. And this is really discombobulating, right? Because your brain is being rewired, Capricorn. Like, completely rewired. And what has taken decades to condition into your brain is being ripped out in a matter of months. This is why it's stinging so much. This is why you feel so lost. This is why you quite likely feel very unpowerful right now. I don't know what the opposite of unpowerful be. I guess it would be weak, but that's not really what I mean. It's just like lacking the power to assume control over your own life again. I mean, maybe some of you are feeling subject to, you know, controlling forces of other people, possibly. And you can try and fight that, but at the same time, you don't seem to have a plan B as to what you would be doing instead. And so the fight is internal, Capricorn. It's entirely internal, I think. And what we're trying to do, what the universe is trying to do, is trying to reprogram the brain so that the bits of you that are authentic and real and have always been there but have been repressed, oppressed, pushed into a corner, you know, fucking carpeted over and forgotten about, get a chance to air themselves so that you as a unique being get to share yourself with the world and get to experience the world from that perspective. So then we come into your current energy and we've got the Tower. I mean, what can we say about the Tower? It's Mars energy. It represents the sign of Scorpio, but it does also represent the sign of Aries, right? Because it's a Mars card. Scorpio was the traditional ruler of Mars, and nowadays it's Aries. You think about them in terms of the almost like the yin and yang of action, right? So Scorpio is very internal, very feminine. It would be the ninja versus the, I don't know, the Greek warrior of legend. Do you know what I mean? One works in subterfuge and silence and, you know, kind of coming out of the darkness, and the other one's right at the front leading the charge. When the Tower shows up, we've got sudden changes happening. This is what makes the Tower a kind of terrifying proposition for most people, particularly those who like their lives to run in an orderly and predictable way. The tower is, it's a 90-degree turn from where we thought we were going, right? Being dragged off in a different direction. And sometimes this can be things like job losses. It can be, having a car accident. It can be something happening to your house, right? Or being made homeless or something like that, right? It's those kind of sudden events sometimes. But I have to say, over the years, my most profound tower moments, the ones that have really made the difference to the way that I live my life full stop, have happened almost uniformly while I was washing up. I don't know what it is about washing up. It seems to be such a fucking mystical art for me. I think it's because I'm doing something that doesn't require my brain. So my brain wanders off and it puts two things together. And what it comes up with when it comes back and presents it to me is something that completely shatters the paradigm that I've been in, right? So it's not unusual to have seen me at points in the past with my mouth wide open, my hands in the sink, just being like, what the fuck, right? Because everything's changed, everything's different. Sometimes it's just your mind putting two things together that you didn't see before. Sometimes it's noticing a pattern that you didn't see before. I guess that would be the same thing, right? It doesn't always need to be the universe coming and, closing down your company or something like that, right? It's not that sort of thing. What I think is quite interesting is, like I said, this High Priestess is reversed. And where the High Priestess is all about acceptance and she's open, the universe uses her as a conduit and energy moves through her, wisdom moves through her that comes directly from the universe. Hence why this combination for me often talks about big spiritual awakenings, right? Because you've got somebody who has achieved a level of open that the universe can plant things directly into their head, and that's what they do, right? And spiritual awakening, that's quite often what happens. And it is a shock. It's a massive shock. But that almost requires the High Priestess to be performing that function of an open vessel, a conduit through which all this stuff can move. The fact that she's showing up in the reverse here for me says one of two things. Either the universe is trying to do this, it's trying to dump stuff into your head and you are resisting it because it's too much, it's overwhelming, right? That would be entirely possible. Or it's like seeing things that you don't want to see, being able to suddenly hear things that you couldn't hear before. It would feel like a massive overstimulation, actually. Just being like, stop it. Like, why am I seeing these things? Why am I hearing these things? Why am I feeling these things? I don't want any of it. It's messy. I don't like it. And it's fucking freaking me out, right? That could be one way in which this is happening. The other way would be that there's some aspect of this that has been... All right, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm not going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you one little excerpt from a story. Like, I read a book once, and it was in 2018, so I was in quite a bad place at that point, and it was something completely unrelated to the workings of the mind. And there was a chapter at the end which I read with interest. I read the whole book in a day, actually, because it was that interesting. And I put the book down, and I realised that I felt quite uneasy. And it took me a few minutes to work out exactly what it was. I went and made myself coffee and then sort of thought about it while I was making the coffee. And what I realised was there was something in that last chapter of the book which had tugged on something in my brain. And I could feel it tugging quite hard. It was just like a little wet bit of knitting wool or something like that, right? That was in a knot, and my mind had picked it up and it was tugging on it. And I had the overwhelming realization or feeling that tugging wasn't going to stop, and at some point that tug was going to pull something out that I had not seen. And I didn't want it to do that. I knew that I didn't want to do it because of how fucking uneasy I felt at the thought that it was going to do that. And I had no idea what it could possibly be that it was going to drag out. But the feeling was weird and I didn't like it. And so I resisted it. And then the next day, 2 days later, I did a yoga class, and that feeling came out again. And then when I left the yoga class, the whole thing exploded. Oh no, that was the Saturday. So 2 days later, I saw her, had a conversation that pulled on that string a little bit more, and then the next day I did a yoga class and the whole thing fucking broke open. And that was not fun. Now, I'm not saying that you're about to have, some sort of fucking emotional breakdown like I did. But what I am saying is that I do feel that sense of unease is something that you're experiencing at the moment, right? There's a tug here. Now, whether it feels like there's something on its way in, and you're not quite sure what that is and you're not really comfortable about it, or whether there's something on its way out from here, either way, the unease is the important thing. And you're resisting it. Problem is, all the tools that you need to grow are in the places that you don't want to look. And I would say that unease that you're feeling right now, and that resistance to the idea of even sitting with whatever that thing is exactly the opposite of what would be a good idea to be doing at the moment. We notice that the Ace of Pentacles is there. It's like, this is worthy of your attention. This is worthy of you investing a little bit of time in it. Why? Because this is all about your growth. It's all about you expanding as a human being, and some of the certainties that have been so absent from your life recently, coming in a way that you don't expect. Because when we're talking about certainties, I would feel like probably of all of the cards on the table, the Ace of Pentacles is the one that you're jiving with the most. You're like, yeah, that's the one that I want, that one, right? So and just start doing what I've always done in the way that I've always done it, and then I can forget about how uneasy I feel right now. But the Ace of Pentacles is actually relating to this here. It's actually saying, now, if you feel really uneasy, that's where you need to start digging, because that's where the tools are that you need to grow. And the tools are internal, right? There's something changing. There is something shifting inside of you. And I do not think, to be honest, that I don't think there's much changing outside of you this month. I really don't think that there is. I think that this is a very internal month where lots of things are going on with you. Because you're on this accelerated timeline of becoming somebody else, right? And the somebody else that you're becoming is actually like true Capricorn, essence of Capricorn. It was like a concentrated essence of Capricorn, rather than this version of you that has been doing life the way that you have been up until this point, right? So, I love this strength card here, because it's got a wolf on for a start, and obviously, I got loads of those, got a pack of those. But rather than the maiden kind of wrestling the lion, which is what we usually see in the strength card, right? And we know that the lion is considerably stronger than the maiden, but she's persuading him to do what she wants, right? There's an aspect of taming one's wilder side there, right? So being more civilized and gentle and empathetic and compassionate and all those kind of things, right? This one kind of flips that around on its head just a little bit. And instead what we've got is the wild, untamed part of us is actually fucking sick. It's lying down in a fucking stream, and it doesn't know what's going on. It doesn't know if it's okay. And the maiden is coming along with her soft and gentle and compassionate and empathetic nature. She's putting out her hand to heal that wolf. Now, for me, this looks like what is being requested of you at this time by the universe is you diverting your conscious mind to healing what is ailing about you, right? That is sitting in the untamed part of you, the bit that isn't really subject to logic and rationality and reason and all that sort of stuff. And hear what it has to say, because there is so much that is repressed within the Capricorn psyche, I think, that it needs to come up so that it can be released, or at least be fucking heard, right? So that there's something that you can work with here. Because if you're looking for what the you know, what the true concentrated essence of what Capricorn is, where it's located, it's not going to be located in your conscious mind. It's just not going to be there. Your conscious mind is the repository of all of the fucking conditioning that you've had for your entire life, Capricorn. Here, the subconscious is where the flame of your identity still sits, and it's ailing. Like, it needs bringing up to the surface. It needs healing. It needs to be heard. And so when you resist that uneasy feeling, what you're actually doing is resisting the bit of you that could probably be the thing that would give you the most fucking value right now, right? It will give you a sense of where it is that you need to go and what you need to do, and who you're becoming, right? What your priorities are, what your values are, these sorts of things. But it's so squashed, right? It's lying down like, oh, fucking, and it needs to be healed. It needs to be allowed to come up, because it's an absolutely integral part of your growth moving forwards. Now, when we get into June and what the rest of June is about, unfortunately, it does feel to me like you are continuing to resist what it is that's trying to come up, right? And the more uneasy that you feel about it, it feels to me it's more likely that it is that you're going to resist what it is. 5 of Swords here, 4 of Cups here, like, these are not comfortable cards at all. And if your repressed psyche has got lots of this kind of energy in it, well, say this kind of energy in it, then what we're going to see, fuck, I've just noticed that, look, 8 of Swords sitting behind that as well, then the conscious expression of that is going to be the 5 of Swords. It's going to be wonky thinking. It's going to be compromised judgment. It's going to be Pyrrhic victories, self-sabotage. Except it's not self-sabotage, right? That's only as far as your conscious mind is concerned. But another part of you got exactly what it fucking needed right there, you know. So anyway, unfortunately, resistance does seem to be the experience for the rest of June, because we've got this 2 of Swords here, and it's like, this is not a place for swords. Like, what's happening here really isn't a matter for the swords, but it doesn't seem to matter, because you're trying to insert the swords there anyway, right? 5 of Swords is at the bottom there, 8 of Swords is here. It's like, I don't understand, and I need to understand before I kind of make any kind of movement forward, right? Before I try and grow in any kind of direction, I need to understand this. These swords are flanking the Cups cards. And the 2 of Swords is here being, no, I am not going to initiate new emotional directions, and I'm not going to make any kind of movement at all until I fucking understand intellectually what the fuck is happening to me. And those kind of answers aren't coming, Capricorn. This is the problem, right? The world in which you operated so very well up until recently does not exist anymore. We don't have a new one that's come in to replace it yet. We are very much in between worlds, which means nothing has any structural integrity right now, like not a fucking bit of it. You try and put your foot down and stand on something, you're as likely to go through it as you are to be held up. It's almost like, well, you could say it's 50-50 as to whether anything has any structural integrity, like the way that we thought that reality existed. But actually, I think it's much more like 75-25, 80%, 20% kind of thing, right? Everything's fucking breaking down. And in order for you to be able to move forwards into the new world that is going to begin to be created very soon, you yourself have to change, right? You have to be a product of the new world and not a product of the old world. I'll bring you back to the end of the cycle here. The 2 of Swords for me is it's that kind of stasis that comes from, on the face of it, indecision. But this isn't a card of indecision. That's the problem. I should tell you for why, right? We have this woman sat here. She's got a blindfold on, and she's got 2 swords crossed over her heart, right? So immediately we know that the heart is not being allowed to be involved in this process whatsoever, right? No crossed, no input from there. And we have instead swords. Now, these swords are functionally identical. There is nothing to choose between them, right? They're basically just fucking swords. But we've convinced ourselves that on some level it is a choice between the swords that needs to occur. We need to involve the swords, full stop. Now, there are other details about this card that show us that that is bullshit and this is not what is happening, right? First off, like, she's got a blindfold on. So she's not able to actually perceive the intricacies of the sword visually, or either of the swords visually. She's going purely on weight and feel, right? But more importantly still, she's got her back to the sea, back to the ocean, her back to the water, which is the true depiction of emotion in the tarot, not the cups. The cups are simply the vessels that hold the emotion. So we've got this huge body of water behind her. And we also have the moon at her back too. Now the moon is important because it represents intuition, which is not a function of the mind. It's not a function of the emotions either. It's something that sits entirely separate to that. But without calm emotions, it's very difficult to hear what the intuition has to say, right? So, if it wasn't enough that she had her back to the moon and her back to the body of water, thus cutting out any kind of emotional input into the decision-making process, any intuitive input to the decision-making process, she now also further has a blindfold over her eyes. So even if she did turn around, she still could not see. And why is this important? There's been such a deliberate attempt to ignore where the information is, the true information, that one has to come to the conclusion that on some level that this woman in the card is aware that if she did consult her emotions, if she did consult her intuition, if she did take the time to turn around, look and really take that in, she would realise that the decision had already been made, and what she was doing was avoiding the true decision, making it instead about these two swords. Now that's the way that I read this card. I understand other people will read it differently, that's fine. When you have this card, in addition to the Page of Cups in the reverse, which is indicating no movement forwards. We're not initiating some new path. We're not allowing our emotions to guide us. We're not allowing our emotions to shape us, actually, right? Show us the way forward. When that is a big fat no, it's not happening, then you can see how the obvious imagery then of the Two of Swords fits beautifully with that. Now, there is another way of looking at this to say that it's kind of accidental, right? Because I talk about this card being willful ignorance, and this maybe is a bit of a misnomer, but the willful ignorance bit comes from the fact that sometimes our ego realizes that it cannot move forwards with this particular set of information that it has in its hands, right? And these are times where we have acted badly, or we've got something wrong, or whatever, and the ego goes, I can't apologize for that because then I will die. And it's as strong as that, right? Or I can't back down on this because I will die. I cannot be seen to be weak, or I'll die, right? With the ego, it's always, or I will die on the end, right? Not until you work with it. And so sometimes what it does as a defense is it subtly screens out things that are glaringly fucking obvious, and for whatever reason we just can't see them at all, right? I'll give you an example. It's not an ego example, but it functions really well. I took my youngest daughter to get her eyes tested 2.5 years ago, something like that. And I was sat in there with her, and she was sat on the chair with her funny glasses on, reading the lines. And he switched the thing out, and he said, "Okay, can you tell me which one you can see better, the red line or the green line?" And she went, "There's only a red line." And I was like, "I can see the green line, what the fuck?" And he was like, "Okay, how about now?" And she was like, no, it's just one line." And he was like, "Okay, that's fine." And at the end, when he put the lights back on, I said, "What was that about? Why couldn't she see the line?" And he said, "Oh, she's got a little drift on one of her eyes." And so her brain is making a computation, when it looks at the two lines. Like, do I see both blurry, or do I only see one and see it really, really sharply? I was like, her brain literally screened out the green line. And he went, yeah, that's exactly what it is. She had no control over that. Like, her brain just made the decision that it was better to see one thing totally clearly than two things blurrily. Yeah, that's the word. That'll do. And sometimes that's what the Two of Swords is operating like, right? It's like, oh, well, I can't see that green line, so it's not actually useful information that I can use to make my decision about something again, right? Now, problem is, Capricorn, I feel like the tower showing up here again is a massive reality check, because it seems to be favouring seeing something blurrily over not seeing it at all. Yeah. Oh, fucking hell. Right, so we've got the Magician reversed, but we've got a turning of the Two of Swords as well. And this is important. This is really important, Capricorn, and I shall tell you for why, because this is the shit that makes you strong and makes you fucking powerful. Not in the first instance, because you have to be torn down so that you can rebuild yourself, right? But here, we have a reversal of an energy of being closed down and unable to see, right? You don't know what you don't know. You can't see what you can't see until you can, right? Until something happens that dislodges the brain's decision making around whether you see this thing or not, right? And that's happening this month without a shadow of a doubt. But notice this. We now have the Magician in the reverse. The Magician in the reverse here, I feel, is a realization of the ways in which you have not actually been exercising to your full capacity, your power, right? You've thought in the past that you were, right? Probably, I'm thinking about situations where you've been quite happy with yourself because you seem to be on top of your shit, and, you've been performing to the rules of the game, and it's all absolutely great. When things are revealed that your mind did not see before, such as is happening here, right? And I honestly think the harder you resist this, Capricorn, the bigger slap it's going to come with, I think, right? Because it's on a mission to dislodge the screening process for you. I think the upshot for most Capricorns is you're going to realise that what you've been doing is manifesting somebody else's reality, somebody else's idea of what you should be experiencing, of what you should be feeling. This is a really uncomfortable realisation to come to, particularly not when one felt like one got so much power out of the way that we had been doing it before, right? But that world doesn't exist anymore, and the rule book has changed, right? This is the revelation that seems to be hitting you like a fucking train this month, Capricorn. And I honestly, on some level, you are prepared for it, because you wouldn't be putting so much effort into resisting it if you didn't realise the impact that this would have. But at the same time, I think it's going to take you all by surprise. Now, this is wonderful for one reason and one reason alone. You're coming to the end of a cycle, and your ruling planet is about to initiate a whole new thing, like a whole new fucking 30 plus year cycle, right? 36, 37 year. Is that right? Oh, a bit longer, something like that anyway. When I said that you were unpicking your conditioning, I wasn't joking. And I feel like this month may have not just one revelation, but a myriad of multiple revelations where you start to see not just where things started to go wrong, but quite how separated you are now from who you wanted to be when you were young, before all of this conditioning really took hold. And honestly, Capricorn, I feel like there's a grief in that. Nine of Wands, Emperor on its side, Four of Pentacles on its side. Yeah, I mean, there's information coming here that you can't ignore anymore. And I think it's the call's coming from inside the house, Capricorn, right? It's coming from inside you, this information. And I think it's going to feel like it massively destabilizes you. It's going to make you feel like you don't have control anymore. But the irony is it's actually returning both of those things to you, because you need to be able to function from a place of authenticity, and you haven't had that opportunity to do that. There are many things that are going to be let go over the course of this month, and it's not going to be entirely clear which is the right thing to let go and which isn't. Like I said, it's actually a repeat of some of the energy that you've had over here, but you've got far more to inform the process here than you had there before. And so to an extent, like, it's a whole new feeling, trying to work out what resonates with you and what doesn't resonate with you in terms of what is truly you versus what everybody else told you you should be, and what your contribution to society and the family and the friendship group should be. Even the shit that you thought was your idea, I feel like this month is going to show up as something else, right? And you're going to be like, I don't fucking recognize this. How did I end up taking this into myself, and creating an entire life around a concept that wasn't mine? And that's why I say I feel like there's a bit of grief in there, Capricorn, which is going to be uncomfortable. But realize that what's going on here is about returning your power to you. It's about returning control to your life, but in a way that is meaningful. And much more in alignment with the new world than the old one. Fucking hell. Right, fuck me, I've been blathering on for ages. I'm going to go now. I'm going to go do the extended. If you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. You can do that on Selfie, or you can come over to Circle. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. If that's not your bag, that's fine. And just keep breathing through this month, Capricorn. Like, just keep breathing through it. It will all be worth it in the end, I absolutely guarantee you. But one should not expect the kind of pulling away of internal rugs like this to be comfortable, because it won't, you know. But one thing that you have got, you know, a tool in your arsenal, if you will, is your ability to endure. Now, like I said, I don't think this is going to be an excoriating process of endurance over the entire month, but, you know, just check in with that ability to endure. Just remind yourself that this is a transitory period of time that is simply aligning you in the right direction, and we like that, right? And it's actually doing it in the most efficient way possible, which is good. We support this, yeah. Anyway, right, I'm going to go. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.